streaming over to Twitch and YouTube as well, just in case. Just in case. And yeah, I think we all need a little story time action there. So this is the book that we're working on, Whose Body by Dorothy L. Sayers. I believe it's her first mystery novel, her first book. And I did some reading up on it there. There's actually a big Wikipedia entry on it. It does have spoilers in it. So I'm going to link it. Yeah, but in case you're worried about spoilers, don't do it. Okay, but it had some interesting things in it there, which kind of make sense of some of the way in which the book is written seems to be satirizing current events at the time. Which probably made a lot of sense back then, but would mean nothing right now. And there was this one part in the book that we were reading yesterday, which I certainly didn't understand. And actually, the text actually changed over the couple of years. So yeah, I'll let people who want to do like the research like read up on it, but there was a reference yesterday that we read to as a matter of fact. Whimsy says the man in the bath is no more Sir Reuben Levy than Adolf Beck, poor devil, was John Smith, which means absolutely nothing to us, or at least to me, but back then, in 1923, it was still a very, very well-known case of mistaken identity for a crime, and this link there is to the actual Adolf Beck case. He was a man who was he was accused of many crimes, basically swindling women. He was like a fraudster. So he was falsely accused of that, but he was positively identified by many of the women. The police officers, they all swore that he was the person that they wanted for when they had their police lineups, where people needed to pick out the person with the gray hair and mustache. He was literally the only person in their lineup who had gray hair and a mustache. So of course they're going to pick him. So anyway, he spent several years in jail. For that, and eventually got out, and always protesting his innocence. And then several years later, he got accused of the exact same crimes again, like with different women, and got arrested and thrown back into jail again. Now the thing is, it was not him, none of this, and the actual real criminal. He actually returned to England once the dude was out of jail for the second time. Yeah. So anyway, it was like a big to-do back then. Anyway, it was it's been kind of interesting looking up all these references in the book, which have been very relevant back when the book was written, but no one knows anything about today. Anyway, I'm just kind of waffling right there. Good morning, Dragon's Lair. Good morning. Brotote hit Game Pass level 100 in... I didn't know that there was a Game Pass level, actually. In... What is AOX? I don't know. Oh, Apex. Oh, okay. You hit the... the Season Pass thing. Okay, that's what... The Season Pass, not Game Pass. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's a fun game. It's a fun game. Very good. Okay, let's take a look. You don't know how what works? The Battle Royale? It's It's just random. It's just random. Okay, we got Kate says they haven't even been to bed yet. Good lord. Oh man. Okay, probably should get some Z's. Probably should. It's good for you. I got some good Z's. Yeah, I did. It was so good I did not want to get up today. Yeah, there we go. What's that telephone? I've never seen that little dinosaur thing. He looks very happy. It looks very happy. It does. Alrighty. Am I? I'm doing okay this time. No, I'm about to be destroyed again. Oh no. Well, it probably will be a bedtime story. Oh, I picked up a health pack. I'm gonna win this. There we go. That's more like it. That's more like it. And pick up another health pack. There we go. Yeah. That's how you win these things. There we go. No one can beat the Carrington. You can't beat the Carrington. And you're not in the Battle Royale. That's really weird. That's very weird. I don't know why there, Brotote. I don't know. Did you unfollow maybe? Because it's set to automatically assign a character. Oh, there you are, right there. There's your big dog. Okay, we'll do one more. He's right there. Here we go. Boom, boom, and okay. Well, there we go. Okay. Anyway, let's get on with our book in the meantime. Let's do it. Let's do a little reading. We got to get on with that. Okay. Okay. So we're only up to chapter 6. Chapter 6. The Thick Boy. Alright, chapter 6, 41% of the way into it, in case anyone's wondering. You can get a free digital download of this from Gutenberg.org, by the way, just in case you're wondering. So where are we at? Oh yeah, so Lord Whimsy is now staying at his mother's house, because his mother happens to live conveniently close to the murder location, to that town there. They've just visited the man who owns the glasses, and the man who owns the glasses is obviously not the murderer, because he's like 80 years old with one bad leg, and there's no way he could be running around with a dead body. Yeah, okay, all right, I think we got it. Okay, there we go. Chapter 6. It was, in fact, inconvenient for Mr. Parker to leave London. He had had to go and see Lady Levy towards the end of the morning, and subsequently his plans for the day had been thrown out of gear, and his movements delayed by the discovery that the adjourned inquest of Mr. Thipp's unknown visitor was to be held that afternoon, since nothing very definite seemed forthcoming from Inspector Suggs' inquiries. Who's Mr. Parker? Parker is he's the friend of Whimsy at Scotland Yard, and Inspector Suggs is the idiot detective at Scotland Yard. Jury and witnesses had been convened accordingly for 3 o'clock. Mr. Parker might altogether have missed the event had he not run against Sugg that morning at the Yard and extracted the information from him, as one would a reluctant tooth. Inspector Sugg, indeed, considered Mr. Parker rather interfering. Moreover, he was hand in glove with Lord Peter Whimsy, and Inspector Sugg had no words for the interferingness of Lord Peter. He could not, however, when directly questioned, deny that there was to be an inquest that afternoon, nor could he prevent Mr. Parker from enjoying the inalienable right of any interested British citizen to be present. At a little before 3, therefore, Mr. Parker was in his place, and amusing himself with watching the efforts of those persons who arrived after the room was packed to insinuate, bribe, or bully themselves into a position of vantage. The coroner, a medical man of precise habits and unimaginative aspect, arrived punctually, and, looking peevishly round at the crowded assembly, directed all the windows to be opened, thus letting in a stream of drizzling fog upon the heads of the unfortunates on that side of the room. This caused a commotion and some expressions of disapproval, checked sternly by the coroner, who said that with the influenza about again, an unventilated room was a death trap, that anybody who chose to open windows had the obvious remedy of leaving the court, and further that if any disturbance was made he would clear the court. He then took a formament lozenge and proceeded, after the usual preliminaries, to call up 14 good and lawful persons, and swear them diligently to inquire and a true presentment make of all matters touching the death of the gentleman with the pince-nez, and to give a true verdict according to the evidence, so help them God. Man, these run-on sentences are crazy. Broke Toad's getting food? You're back in an hour? Oh, yeah, I'll still be here. Okay, you go get your breakfast there. Good morning, Dagny. Dear Dagny, what's up? Can't get away from it. That's right. This book was written in it was published in 1923. Being written in 22, I guess. Just a couple of years after the big pandemic of 1918. 1917, 1918, that killed like millions worldwide. So I mean, that's another a little bit of that trivia, or like I guess like things which are current events at the time of the book, which we really wouldn't give that much attention to, similar to that Adolf Beck reference earlier. The Spanish flu, is that the one? When an expostulation by a woman juror, an elderly lady in spectacles who kept a sweet shop and appeared to wish she was back there, had been summarily quashed by the coroner, the jury departed to view the body. Mr. Parker gazed round again and identified the unhappy Mr. Phipps and the girl Gladys, led into an adjoining room under the grim guard of the police. Mr. Phipps, so Mr. Phipps is the owner of the apartment where the body was found, who was like, I don't know how this body ended up in my bathtub, and the girl Gladys is his maid. Okay, and they have been arrested for the murder. They were soon followed by a gaunt old lady in a bonnet and mantle. With her, in a wonderful fur coat and a motor bonnet of fascinating construction, came the Dowager Duchess of Denver. That's Lord Whimsy's mother, her quick dark eyes darting hither and thither about the crowd. The next moment they had lighted on Mr. Parker, who had several times visited the Dower house, and she nodded to him and spoke to a policeman. Before long, a way opened magically through the press, and Mr. Parker found himself accommodated with a front seat just behind the Duchess, who greeted him charmingly and said, "What happened to poor Peter?" Parker began to explain, and the coroner glanced irritably in their direction. Somebody went up and whispered in his ear, at which he coughed and took another formament. "We came up by car," said the Duchess. "So tiresome, such bad roads between Denver and Gunbury St. Walters. And there were people coming to lunch. I had to put them off. I couldn't let the old lady go alone, could I? By the way, such an odd thing's happened about the Church Restoration Fund. The vicar— Oh, dear, here are those people coming back again. Well, I'll tell you afterwards. Do look at that woman looking shocked. And the girl in tweeds trying to look as if she sat on undraped gentlemen every day of her life. Oh, I don't mean that. Corpses, of course. But one finds oneself being so Elizabethan nowadays. What an awful little man the coroner is, isn't he? He's looking daggers at me. Do you think he'll dare to clear me out of the court, or commit me for what-you-may-call-it?" The first part of the evidence was not of great interest to Mr. Parker. The wretched Mr. Phipps, who had caught cold in jail, deposed in an unhappy croak to having discovered the body when he went in to take his bath at 8 o'clock. He had had such a shock he had to sit down and send the girl for brandy. He had never seen the deceased before. He had no idea how he came there. Yes, he had been in Manchester the day before. He had arrived at St. Pancras at 10 o'clock. He had cloak-roomed his bag. At this point, Mr. Phipps became very red, unhappy and confused, and glanced nervously about the court. "Now, Mr. Phipps," said the coroner briskly, "we must have your movements quite clear. You must appreciate the importance of the matter. You've chosen to give evidence, which you need not have done, but having done so, you will find it best to be perfectly explicit." "Yes," said Mr. Phipps faintly. "Have you cautioned this witness, officer?" inquired the coroner, turning sharply to Inspector Sugg. The inspector replied that he had told Mr. Phipps that anything he said might be used against him at his trial. Mr. Phipps became ashy and said in a bleating voice that he hadn't meant to do anything that wasn't right. This remark produced a mild sensation, and the coroner became even more acidulated in manner than before. What does that mean, acidulated? Make slightly acidic. Okay, all right. Sour. Okay, bitter. "Is anybody representing Mr. Phipps?" he asked irritably. "No. Did you not explain to him that he ought to be represented?" "You did not? Really, Inspector? Did you not know, Mr. Phipps, that you had a right to be legally represented?" Mr. Phipps clung to a chair back for support and said, "No," in a voice barely audible. "It is incredible," said the coroner, "that so-called educated people should be so ignorant of the legal procedure of their own country. This places us in a very awkward position. I doubt, Inspector, whether I should permit the prisoner, Mr. Phipps, to give evidence at all. It's a delicate position." The perspiration stood on Mrs. Phipps' forehead. "Save us from our friends," whispered the Duchess to Parker. "If that cough-drop-devouring creature had openly instructed those 14 people, and what unfinished-looking faces they have, so characteristic, I always think, of the lower middle class, rather like sheep or calf's head, boiled, I mean, to bring in wilful murder against the poor little man, he couldn't have made himself plainer." "He can't incriminate himself, you know," said Parker. "Stuff," said the Duchess. "How could the man incriminate himself when he never did anything in his life? You men never think of anything but red tape." Meanwhile, Mr. Phipps, wiping his brow with a handkerchief, had summoned up courage. He stood up with a kind of weak dignity, like a small white rabbit brought to bay. "I would rather tell you," he said, "though it is really very unpleasant for a man in my position, but I really couldn't have thought for a moment that I'd committed this dreadful crime. I assure you, gentlemen, I couldn't bear that. No, I'd rather tell you the truth, though I'm afraid it places me in rather well, I'll tell you." "You fully understand the gravity of making such a statement, Mr. Phipps," said the coroner. "Quite," said Mr. Phipps. "It's all right. Might I have a drink of water?" "Take your time," said the coroner, at the same time robbing his remark of all conviction by an impatient glance at his watch. "Thank you, sir," said Mr. Phipps. "Well, then, it's true I got to St. Pancras at 10, but there was a man in the carriage with me. He'd got in at Leicester. I didn't recognize him at first, but he turned out to be an old schoolfellow of mine." "What was this gentleman's name?" inquired the coroner, his pencil poised. "Good morning, Meek Stingray. How you doing?" Mr. Phipps shrank together visibly. I'm afraid I can't tell you that," he said. "You see, that is, you will see, it would get him into trouble, and I couldn't do that. No, I really couldn't do that, not if my life depended on it. No," he added, as the ominous pertinence of the last phrase smote upon him, "I'm sure I couldn't do that." "Well, well," said the coroner. The Duchess leaned over to Parker again. "I'm beginning to quite admire the little man," she said. Mr. Phipps resumed. "Good morning, Bat Games. Yeah, coffee time. It is coffee time." When we got to St. Pancras, I was going home, but my friend said no, we hadn't met for a long time, and we ought to make a night of it, was his expression. I fear I was weak, and let him over-persuade me to accompany him to one of his haunts. I use the word advisedly, said Mr. Phipps. And I assure you, sir, that if I had known beforehand where we were going, I never would have set foot in the place. I cloak-roomed my bag, for he did not like the notion of our being encumbered with it, and we got into a taxicab and drove to the corner of Tottenham Court Road and Oxford Street. We then walked a little way and turned into a side street, I do not recall which, where there was an open door with the light shining out. There was a man at the counter, and my friend bought some tickets, and I heard the man at the counter say something to him about your friend, meaning me, and my friend said, oh yes, he's been here before, haven't you, Alf? Which is what they called me at school. Though I assure you, sir, here Mr. Phipps grew very earnest, I never had, and nothing in the world should induce me to go to such a place again. Well, we went down into a room underneath where there were drinks, and my friend had several and made me take one or two, though I am an abstemious man as a rule, and he talked to some other men and girls who were there, a very vulgar set of people, I thought them, though I wouldn't say but what some of the young ladies were nice-looking enough. One of them sat on my friend's knee and called him a slow old thing and told him to come on, and so we went into another room where there were a lot of people dancing all these up-to-date dances. My friend went and danced, and I sat on a sofa. One of the young ladies came up to me and said, didn't I dance? And I said no, so she said, wouldn't I stand her a drink then? You'll stand us a drink then, darling. That was what she said. And I said, wasn't it after hours? And she said that it didn't matter. So I ordered the drink, a gin and bitters it was, for I didn't like not to. The young lady seemed to expect it of me, and I felt it wouldn't be gentlemanly to refuse when she asked. But it went against my conscience, such a young girl as she was, and she put her arm round my neck afterwards and kissed me just like as if she was paying for the drink, and it really went to my heart, said Mr. Phipps, a little ambiguously, but with uncommon emphasis. Here somebody at the back said, cheero, and a sound was heard as of the noisy smacking of lips. Remove the person who made that improper noise, said the coroner with great indignation. Go on, please, Mr. Phipps. Well, said Mr. Phipps, about 12:30, as I should reckon, things began to get a bit lively, and I was looking for my friend to say good night, not wishing to stay longer, as you will understand, when I saw him with one of the young ladies, and they seemed to be getting on altogether too well, if you follow me. My friend pulling the ribbons off her shoulder, and the young lady laughing, and so on, said Mr. Phipps hurriedly. So I thought I'd just slip quietly out, when I heard a scuffle and a shout, and before I knew what was happening there were half a dozen policemen in, and the lights went out, and everybody stampeding and shouting. Quite horrid it was. I was knocked down in the rush and hit my head a nasty knock on a chair. That was where I got that bruise they asked me about, and I was dreadfully afraid I'd never get away, and it would all come out, and perhaps my photograph in the papers, when someone caught hold of me. I think it was the young lady I'd given the gin and bitters to, and she said this way, and pushed me along a passage and out at the back somewhere. So I ran through some streets and found myself in Goodge Street, and there I got a taxi and came home. I saw the account of the raid afterwards in the papers, and saw my friend had escaped, and so it wasn't the sort of thing I wanted to make public, and I didn't want to get him into difficulties. I just said nothing. But that's the truth. Well, Mr. Phipps, said the coroner, we shall be able to substantiate a certain amount of this story. Your friend's name? No, said Mr. Phipps stoutly, not on any account. Very good, said the coroner. Now, can you tell us what time you did get in? About 1:30, I should think, though really I was so upset. Quite so. Did you go straight to bed? Yes. I took my sandwich and glass of milk first. I thought it might settle my inside, so to speak. added the witness apologetically, "not being accustomed to alcohol so late at night and on an empty stomach, as you may say." Quite so. Nobody sat up for you?" "Nobody." How long did you take getting to bed, first and last?" Mr. Phipps thought it might have been a half an hour. Did you visit the bathroom before turning in?" "No." "And you heard nothing in the night?" "No. I fell fast asleep. I was rather agitated, so I took a little dose to make me sleep, and what with being so tired, and the milk and the dose, I just tumbled right off and didn't wake till Gladys called me." Further questioning elicited little from Mr. Phipps. Yes, the bathroom window had been open when he went in the morning, he was sure of it, and he had spoken very sharply to the girl about it. He was ready to answer any questions. He would be only too happy to have this dreadful affair sifted to the bottom. Gladys Horrocks stated that she had been in Mr. Phipps' employment about 3 months. Her previous employers would speak to her character. It was her duty to make the round of the flat at night, when she had seen Mrs. Phipps to bed at 10. Yes, she remembered doing so on Monday evening. She had looked into all the rooms. Did she recollect shutting the bathroom window that night? Well, no, she couldn't swear to it, not in particular, but when Mr. Phipps called her into the bathroom in the morning, it certainly was open. She had not been in the bathroom before Mr. Phipps went in. Well, yes, it had happened that she had left that window open before, when anyone had been having a bath in the evening, and had left the blind down. Mrs. Phipps had had a bath on Monday evening. Mondays was one of her regular bath nights. She was very much afraid she hadn't shut the window on Monday night, though she wished her head had been cut off before she'd been so forgetful. Here the witness burst into tears and was given some water, while the coroner refreshed himself with a third lozenge. Recovering, witness stated that she had certainly looked into all the rooms before going to bed. No, it was quite impossible for a body to be hidden in the flat without her having seen it. She'd have been in the kitchen all evening, and there wasn't hardly room to keep the best dinner service there, let alone a body. Old Mrs. Phipps sat in the drawing-room. Yes, she was sure she'd been into the dining-room. How? Because she'd put Mr. Phipps' milk and sandwiches there, ready for him. There had been nothing in there that she could swear to. Nor yet in her own bedroom, nor in the hall. Had she searched the bedroom cupboard and the box-room? Well, no, not to say searched. She wasn't used to searching people's houses for skeletons every night. So that a man might have concealed himself in the box-room or a wardrobe. She supposed he might. In reply to a woman juror, well, yes, she was walking out with a young man. Williams was his name. Bill Williams. Yes, William Williams, if they insisted. He was a glazier by profession. Well, yes, he had been in the flat sometimes. Well, she supposed you might say he was acquainted with the flat. Had she ever... No, she hadn't, and if she'd thought such a question was going to be put to a respectable girl, she wouldn't have offered to give evidence. The vicar of St. Mary's would speak to her character, and to Mr. Williams. Last time Mr. Williams was at the flat was a fortnight ago. Well, no, it wasn't exactly the last time she had seen Mr. Williams. Well, yes, the last time was Monday. Well, yes, Monday night. Well, if she must tell the truth, she must. Yes, the officer had cautioned her, but there wasn't any harm in it, and it was better to lose her place than to be hung. Though it was a cruel shame a girl couldn't have a bit of fun without a nasty corpse coming in through the window to get her into difficulties. After she'd put Mrs. Phipps to bed, she'd slipped out to go to the plumber's and glazier's ball at the Black-Faced Ram. Mr. Williams had met her and brought her back. He couldn't testify to where she'd been, and that there wasn't no harm in it. She'd left before the end of the ball. It might have been 2 o'clock when she got back. She'd got the keys of the flat from Mr. Phipps' drawer when Mrs. Phipps wasn't looking. She'd have asked to leave to go, but couldn't get it, along of Mr. Phipps being away that night. She was bitterly sorry she'd have behaved so, and she was sure she'd be punished for it. She had heard nothing suspicious when she came in. She'd gone straight to bed without looking round the flat. She wished she were dead. Good morning, Morbid Curiosity. Good morning, good morning. Oh, AJ is here. Good morning, AJ. Yeah. Ooh. Man, okay. Let's get a little coffee in here. Alrighty. You feel like what some days? Like well, everyone's bearing witness to the coroner right now, hoping that they're not going to get hung. Is it a death H in this? Oh yeah, I guess they're trying to like put in like a speech pattern, put in their vernacular. The way she's speaking, she'll be speaking with that kind of accent when they drop the H's all the time. Like cutting your head off for forgetting things. Ah, okay. All right. Okay, so this is the maid, by the way. Yeah, so this is Mr. Phipps' maid giving testimony, and she's also been arrested. Mr. Phipps and the maid have been arrested for the murder because the body just showed up in their house. So sure, why not? No, Mr. and Mrs. Phipps didn't hardly ever have any visitors. They kept themselves very retired. She'd found the outside door bolted that morning as usual. She wouldn't never believe any harm of Mr. Phipps. Thank you, Miss Horrocks. Call Georgina Phipps, and the coroner thought we had better light the gas. The examination of Mrs. Phipps provided more entertainment than enlightenment, affording as it did an excellent example of the game called cross questions and crooked answers. After 15 minutes' suffering, both in voice and temper, the coroner abandoned the struggle, leaving the lady with the last word. "You needn't try to bully me, young man," said that octogenarian with spirit, "settin' there spoiling your stomach with them nasty jujubes." At this point, a young man arose in court and demanded to give evidence. Having explained that he was William Williams, glazier, he was sworn and corroborated the evidence of Gladys Horrocks in the matter of her presence at the Black-Faced Ram on Monday night. They had returned to the flat rather before 2, he thought, but certainly later than 1:30. He was sorry that he had persuaded Miss Horrocks to come out with him when she didn't ought. He had observed nothing of a suspicious nature in Prince of Wales Road at either visit. Inspector Sugg gave evidence of having been called in about 8:30 on Monday morning. He had considered the girl's manner to be suspicious and had arrested her. On later information, leading him to suspect that the deceased might have been murdered that night, he had arrested Mr. Phipps. He had found no trace of breaking into the flat. There were marks on the bathroom windowsill which pointed to somebody having got in that way. There were no ladder marks or footmarks in the yard. The yard was paved with asphalt. He had examined the roof, but found nothing on the roof. In his opinion, the body had been brought into the flat previously and concealed till the evening by someone who had then gone out during the night by the bathroom window with the connivance of the girl. In that case, why should not the girl have let the person out by the door? Well, it might have been so. Had he found traces of a body or a man or both having been hidden in the flat? He found nothing to show that they might not have been so concealed. What was the evidence that led him to suppose that the death had occurred that night? At this point, Inspector Sugg appeared uneasy and endeavored to retire upon his professional dignity. On being pressed, however, he admitted that the evidence in question had come to nothing. One of the jurors. Was it the case that any finger marks had been left by the criminal? Some marks had been found on the bath, but the criminal had worn gloves. The coroner. Do you draw any conclusion from this fact as to the experience of the criminal? Inspector Sugg. Looks as if he was an old hand, sir. The juror. Is that very consistent with the charge against Alfred Phipps, Inspector? The inspector was silent. The coroner. In the light of the evidence which you have just heard, do you still press the charge against Alfred Phipps and Gladys Horrocks? Inspector Sugg. I consider the whole set-out highly suspicious. Phipps' story isn't corroborated, and as for the girl Horrocks, how do we know this Williams ain't in it as well? William Williams. Now you drop that. I can bring 100 witnesses. The coroner. Silence, if you please. I am surprised, Inspector, that you should make this suggestion in that manner. It is highly improper. By the way, can you tell us whether a police raid was actually carried out on the Monday night on any nightclub in the neighborhood of St. Giles Circus? Inspector Sugg. Sulkily. I believe there was something of the sort. The coroner. You will no doubt inquire into the matter. I seem to recollect having seen some mention of it in the newspapers. Thank you, Inspector, that will do. Several witnesses having appeared and testified to the characters of Mr. Phipps and Gladys Horrocks, the coroner stated his intention of proceeding to the medical evidence. Sir Julian Frecker. There was considerable stir in the court as the great specialist walked up to give evidence. He was not only a distinguished man, but a striking figure, with his wide shoulders, upright carriage, and leonine head. His manner, as he kissed the book presented to him with the usual deprecatory mumble by the coroner's officer, was that of a St. Paul condescending to humor the timid mumbo-jumbo of superstitious Corinthians. "So handsome, I always think," whispered the Duchess to Mr. Parker. "Just exactly like William Morris, with that bush of hair and beard and those exciting eyes looking out of it. So splendid. These dear men always devoted to something or other. Not but what I think socialism is a mistake. Of course it works with all those nice people, so good and happy and art linen, and the weather's always perfect. Morris, I mean, you know. But so difficult in real life. Science is different. I'm sure if I had nerves I should go to Sir Julian just to look at him. Eyes like that give one something to think about, and that's what most of these people want, only I never had any. Nerves, I mean. Don't you think so?" "You are Sir Julian Frecker," said the coroner, "and live at St. Luke's House, Prince of Wales Road, Battersea, where you exercise a general direction over the surgical side of St. Luke's Hospital." Sir Julian assented briefly to this definition of his personality. "You were the first medical man to see the deceased?" "I was." "And you have since conducted an examination in collaboration with Dr. Grimbold of Scotland Yard?" "I have." "You are in agreement as to the cause of death?" Generally speaking, yes." "Will you communicate your impressions to the jury?" "I was engaged in research work in the dissecting room at St. Luke's Hospital at about 9 o'clock on Monday morning when I was informed that Inspector Sugg wished to see me. He told me that the dead body of a man had been discovered under mysterious circumstances at 59 Queen Caroline Mansions. He asked me whether it could be supposed to be a joke perpetrated by any of the medical students at the hospital. I was able to assure him by an examination of the hospital's books that there was no subject missing from the dissecting room. "Who would be in charge of such bodies?" "William Watts, the dissecting room attendant." "Is William Watts present?" inquired the coroner of the officer. William Watts was present, and could be called if the coroner thought it necessary. I suppose no dead body would be delivered to the hospital without your knowledge, Sir Julian.
Certainly not.
Thank you. Will you proceed with your statement?
Inspector Sugg then asked me whether I would send a medical man round to view the body. I said that I would go myself.
Why did you do that?
I confess to my share of ordinary human curiosity, Mr. Coroner.
Laughter from a medical student at the back of the room.
On arriving at the flat, I found the deceased lying on his back in the bath. I examined him and came to the conclusion that death had been caused by a blow on the back of the neck, dislocating the fourth and fifth cervical vertebrae, bruising the spinal cord, and producing internal hemorrhage and partial paralysis of the brain. I judged the deceased to have been dead at least 12 hours, possibly more. I observed no other sign of violence of any kind upon the body. Deceased was a strong, well-nourished man of about 50 to 55 years of age.
In your opinion, could the blow have been self-inflicted?
Certainly not. It had been made with a heavy, blunt instrument from behind, with great force and considerable judgment. It is quite impossible that it was self-inflicted.
Could it have been the result of an accident?
That is possible, of course.
If, for example, the deceased had been looking out of the window and the sash had shut violently down upon him.
Oh, no. In that case, there would have been signs of strangulation and a bruise upon the throat as well.
But the deceased might have been killed through a heavy weight accidentally falling upon him.
He might.
Was death instantaneous, in your opinion?
It's difficult to say. Such a blow might very well cause death instantaneously, or the patient might linger in a partially paralyzed condition for some time. In the present case, I should be disposed to think that the deceased might have lingered for some hours. I base my decision upon the condition of the brain revealed at the autopsy. I may say, however, that Dr. Grimbold and I are not in complete agreement on the point.
I understand that a suggestion has been made as to the identification of the deceased. You are not in a position to identify him.
Certainly not. I never saw him before. The suggestion to which you refer is a preposterous one, and ought never to have been made. I was not aware until this morning that it had been made. Had it been made to me earlier, I should have known how to deal with it, and I should like to express my strong disapproval of the unnecessary shock and distress inflicted upon a lady with whom I have the honor to be acquainted.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this doctor who lives in the hospital across the road, this medical doctor, he used to date the now wife of who they believe the dead person to be. Except it's not the dead person that they think it is. If that makes sense. No. So that has come to light. The coroner. It was not my fault, Sir Julian. I had nothing to do with it. I agree with you that it was unfortunate you were not consulted. The reporters scribbled busily, and the court asked each other what was meant, while the jury tried to look as if they knew already. In the matter of the eyeglasses found upon the body, Sir Julian, do these give any indication to a medical man?
In your opinion? They are somewhat unusual lenses. An oculist would be able to speak more definitely, but I will say for myself that I should have expected them to belong to an older man than the deceased.
Speaking as a physician who has had many opportunities of observing the human body, did you gather anything from the appearance of the deceased as to his personal habits?
I should say that he was a man in easy circumstances, but who had only recently come into money. His teeth are in a bad state, and his hands show signs of recent manual labor.
An Australian colonist, for instance, who had made money?
Something of that sort. Of course, I could not say positively.
Of course not. Thank you, Sir Julian. Good morning, Silent Running. How you doing? I'm in danger of becoming popular. That would be terrible. That would be terrible. Yeah. How you doing? Yeah, I think a lot of the people in here are here courtesy of various hosts, which is very nice as well. Very nice as well. But yeah, I certainly do seem to attract the lurking crowd. The peeps they just want to come in, just have something interesting to listen to. It's fine. That's fine. Fine with me. Doing okay. It's been a good day. It's been a good day so far. And I hope your day is going well, Silent Running. Yeah. Hope you're having a great day. Okay. Okay.
His teeth are in bad state, and his hands show signs of recent manual labor.
An Australian colonist, for instance, who had made money.
Something of that sort. Of course, I could not say positively.
Of course not. Thank you, Sir Julian. Dr. Grimbold called, corroborated his distinguished colleague in every particular, except that, in his opinion, death had not occurred for several days after the blow. It was with the greatest hesitancy that he ventured to differ from Sir Julian Frecker, and he might be wrong. It was difficult to tell in any case, and when he saw the body, deceased had been dead at least 24 hours in his opinion. Inspector Sugg recalled. Would he tell the jury what steps had been taken to identify the deceased? A description had been sent to every police station and had been inserted in all the newspapers. In view of the suggestion made by Sir Julian Frecker, had inquiries been made at all at the seaports? They had, and with no results at all. No one had come forward to identify the body. Plenty of people had come forward, but nobody had succeeded in identifying it. Had any effort been made to follow up the clue afforded by the eyeglasses? Inspector Sugg submitted that, having regard to the interests of justice, he would beg to be excused from answering that question. Might the jury see the eyeglasses? The eyeglasses were handed to the jury. William Watts called, confirmed the evidence of Sir Julian Frecker with regard to dissecting room subjects. He explained the system by which they were entered. They usually were supplied by the workhouses and free hospitals. They were under his sole charge. The young gentleman could not possibly get the keys. Had Sir Julian Frecker or any of the house surgeons the keys? No, not even Sir Julian Frecker. The keys had remained in his possession on Monday night. They had. And in any case the inquiry was irrelevant, as there was no body missing, nor ever had been. That was the case. The coroner then addressed the jury, reminding them with some asperity that they were not there to gossip about who the deceased could or could not have been, but to give their opinion as to the cause of death. He reminded them that they should consider whether, according to the medical evidence, death could have been accidental or self-inflicted, or whether it was deliberate murder or a homicide. If they considered the evidence on this point insufficient, they could return an open verdict. In any case, their verdict could not prejudice any person. If they brought it in murder, all the whole evidence would have to be gone through again before the magistrate. He then dismissed them with the unspoken adjuration to be quick about it. Sir Julian Frecker, after giving his evidence, had caught the eye of the Duchess, and now came over and greeted her.
"I haven't seen you for an age," said that lady. "How are you?"
Hard at work, said the specialist.
"Just got my new book out. This kind of thing wastes time. Have you seen Lady Levy yet?" "No, poor dear," said the Duchess. "I only came up this morning for this. Mrs. Thipps is staying with me. One of Peter's eccentricities, you know. Poor Christine. I must run around and see her. This is Mr. Parker," she added, "who is investigating that case."
"Oh," said Sir Julian, and paused.
"Do you know," he said in a low voice to Parker, "I am very glad to meet you. Have you seen Lady Levy yet?"
"I saw her this morning."
"And did she ask you to go on with the inquiry?"
"Yes," said Parker. "She thinks," he added, "that Sir Reuben may be detained in the hands of some financial rival, or that perhaps some scoundrels are holding him to ransom."
"And is that your opinion?"
asked Sir Julian. "I think it very likely," said Parker frankly. Sir Julian hesitated again.
"I wish you would walk back with me when this is over," he said.
"I should be delighted," said Parker. At this, okay, for those who are who might be new here, okay, so there's okay, you had the rich financier, Mr. Levy, Mr. Reuben Levy. He went missing one night. And then the following morning, over in Battersea, a body was found in a bathtub. And the initial thought was, well, a dude went missing, and now we've got a body. This must be the missing person. But it turns out that the body in the bathtub is not the missing person, but an attempt has been made to make him look like the missing person. But they've just recently, but now once again they are like, okay, it's just some mysterious body where we don't know where it came from now, and the financier has just gone back to missing status, and so yeah, it's everything's a big mess right now. Okay. At this moment, the jury returned and took their places, and there was a little rustle and hush. The coroner addressed the foreman and inquired if they were agreed upon their verdict. "We are agreed, Mr. Coroner, that deceased died of the effects of a blow upon the spine, but how that injury was inflicted we consider that there is not sufficient evidence to show." Mr. Parker and Sir Julian Frecker walked up the road together.
"I had absolutely no idea until I saw Lady Levy this morning," said the doctor, "that there was any idea of connecting this matter with the disappearance of Sir Reuben. The suggestion was perfectly monstrous, and could only have grown up in the mind of that ridiculous police officer. If I had had any idea what was in his mind, I could have disabused him and avoided all this."
"I did my best to do so," said Parker, "as soon as I was called into the Levy case."
"Who called you in, if I may ask?"
inquired Sir Julian. "Well, the household, first of all, and then Sir Reuben's uncle, Mr. Levy, of Portman Square, wrote to me on the go with the investigation."
"And now Lady Levy has confirmed those instructions?"
"Certainly," said Parker in some surprise. Sir Julian was silent for a little time. "I'm afraid I was the first person to put the idea into Suggs' head," said Parker, rather penitently. "When Sir Reuben disappeared, my first step, almost, was to hunt up all the street accidents and suicides and so on that had turned up during the day, and I went down to see this Battersea Park body as a matter of routine. Of course, I saw that the thing was as ridiculous as soon as I got there, but Sugg froze onto the idea, and it's true there was a good deal of resemblance between the dead man and the portraits I've seen of Sir Reuben. You're going to unplug the female dog. Oh, Alexa, yes, that's, yeah, I don't know why people have those. Yeah. And it's true there was a good deal of resemblance between the dead man and the portraits I've seen of Sir Reuben.
A strong superficial likeness, said Sir Julian. The upper part of the face is not an uncommon type, and as Sir Reuben wore a heavy beard, and there was no opportunity of comparing the mouth and chins, I can understand the idea occurring to anybody, but only to be dismissed at once. I'm sorry, he added, as the whole affair has been painful to Lady Levy. You may know, Mr. Parker, that I am an old, though I should not call myself an intimate, friend of the Levys.
I understood something of the sort.
Yes.
What was that? Oh, there's someone sent a text here.
Yes. When I was a young man, in short, Mr. Parker, I hoped once to marry Lady Levy.
Mr. Parker gave the usual sympathetic groan.
I have never married, as you know, pursued Sir Julian. We have remained good friends. I have always done what I could to spare her pain.
Believe me, Sir Julian, said Parker, that I sympathize very much with you and with Lady Levy, and that I did all I could to disabuse Inspector Sugg of this notion. Unhappily, the coincidence of Sir Reuben's being seen that evening in the Battersea Park Road.
Yes, said Sir Julian. Dear me, here we are at home. Perhaps you would come in for a moment, Mr. Parker, and have tea, or a whiskey and soda, or something.
Parker promptly accepted this invitation, feeling that there were other things to be said. The two men stepped into a square, finely furnished hall with a fireplace on the same side as the door and a staircase opposite. The dining-room door stood open on their right, and as Sir Julian rang the bell, a manservant appeared at the far end of the hall. She spells things for you, reminds you of stuff normally that, yeah.
What will you take? Asked the doctor.
After that dreadfully cold place, said Parker, what I really want is gallons of hot tea, if you, as a nerve specialist, can bear the thought of it.
Provided you allow of a judicious blend of china in it, replied Sir Julian in the same tone. I have no objection to make. Tea in the library at once, he added to the servant, and led the way upstairs. I don't use the downstairs rooms much, except the dining-room, he explained as he ushered his guest into a small but cheerful library on the first floor. This room leads out of my bedroom and is more convenient. I only live part of my time here, but it's very handy for my research work at the hospital. That's what I do there, mostly. It's a fatal thing for a theorist, Mr. Parker, to let the practical work get behindhand. Dissection is the basis of all good theory and all correct diagnosis. One must keep one's hand and eye in training. This place is far more important to me than Harley Street, and some day I shall abandon my consulting practice altogether and settle down here to cut up my subjects and write my books in peace. So many things in this life are a waste of time, Mr. Parker.
Mr. Parker assented to this.
Very often, said Sir Julian, the only time I get for any research work, necessitating as it does the keenest observation and the faculties at their acutest, has to be at night, after a long day's work and by artificial light, which, magnificent as the lighting of the dissecting room here is, is always more trying to the eyes than daylight. Doubtless your own work has to be carried on under even more trying conditions.
Yes, sometimes, said Parker. But then, you see, he added, the conditions are, so to speak, part of the work.
Quite so, said Sir Julian. You mean that the burglar, for example, does not demonstrate his methods in the light of day, or plant the perfect footmark in the middle of a damp patch of sand for you to analyze?
Not as a rule, said the detective, but I have no doubt many of your diseases work quite as insidiously as any burglar.
They do, said Sir Julian, laughing. And it is my pride, as it is yours, to track them down for the good of society. The neuroses, you know, are particularly clever criminals. They break out into as many disguises as
Leon Kestrel, the master mummer, suggested Parker, who read railway stall detective stories on the principle of the busman's holiday. Oh yeah, okay. Then there's more pop culture stuff popped in there. I'm just going to look this dude up, Leon Kestrel. I bet it's a real thing too. Wiki Leon Kestrel. Leon Kestrel. Leon Kestrel, the master mummer, the prince of pretense. In the Union Jack, Leon Kestrel is described as follows. Never before in a lifetime of combat with crime of every kind has Sexton Blake found himself opposed to a syndicate so sinister and menacing as that created and controlled by the perverted genius of Leon Kestrel. Huh. Okay, so I guess he was like the enemy of Detective Sexton Blake, who was a detective featured in British comics, novels, and dramatic productions since 1893. Published across the world from 1893 to 1978. Good Lord. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, so yeah, all kinds of pop culture references in this book here. Yours guards the house. What? I didn't know it could do that. If you say you're leaving and the thing hears a noise like glass break, it sends you a... all kinds of uses for them. Right. As Leon Kestrel, the master mummer, suggested Parker, who read railway stall detective stories on the principle of the busman's holiday.
No doubt,
said Sir Julian, who did not.
And they cover up their tracks wonderfully. But when you can really investigate, Mr. Parker, and break up the dead, or for preference the living body, with the scalpel, you'll always find the footmarks, the little trail of ruin or disorder left by madness or disease or drink or any other similar pest. But the difficulty is to trace them back merely by observing the surface symptoms, the hysteria, crime, religion, fear, shyness, conscience, or whatever it may be. Just as you observe a theft or a murder and look for the footsteps of the criminal, so I observe a fit of hysterics or an outburst of piety, and hunt for the little mechanical irritation which has produced it.
You regard all these things as physical?
Undoubtedly. I am not ignorant of the rise of another school of thought, Mr. Parker, but its exponents are mostly charlatans or self-deceivers. Sie haben sich so weit darin eingeheimnisst that, like Sludge the Medium, they are beginning to believe their own nonsense. I should like to have the exploring of some of their brains, Mr. Parker. I would show you the little faults and landslips in the cells, the misfiring and short-circuiting of the nerves, which produce these notions, and these books. At least, he added, gazing somberly at his guest, at least, if I could not quite show you today, I should be able to do so tomorrow, or in a year's time, or before I die.
Good morning, King Danny. Good morning. This dude he sounds awfully sinister. And we've really we've only been introduced to him just recently as well. He hasn't been around since the beginning. Okay, all right. Well, he was mentioned. They talked about him before. Yeah, they did. He sat for some minutes gazing into the fire while the red light played upon his tawny beard. Oh, no, I'm tired. And struck out answering gleams from his compelling eyes. Parker drank tea in silence, watching him. On the whole, however, he remained but little interested in the causes of nervous phenomena, and his mind strayed to Lord Peter, coping with the redoubtable Crimplesham down in Salisbury. Lord Peter had wanted him to come. That meant either that Crimplesham was proving recalcitrant, or that a clue wanted following. But Bunter had said that tomorrow would do, and it was just as well. After all, the Battersea affair was not Parker's case. He had already wasted valuable time attending an inconclusive inquest, and he really ought to get on with his legitimate work. There was still Levy's secretary to see, and the little matter of the Peruvian oil to be looked into. He looked at his watch. "I'm very much afraid, if you will excuse me." Sir Julian came back with a start to the consideration of actuality.
"Your work calls you," he said, smiling. "Well, I can understand that. I won't keep you, but I wanted to say something to you in connection with your present inquiry. Only I hardly like—"
Parker sat down again and banished every indication of hurry from his face and attitude. "I shall be very grateful for any help you can give me," he said.
"I'm afraid it's more in the nature of hindrance," said Sir Julian with a short laugh. "It's a case of destroying a clue for you, and a breach of professional confidence on my side. But since, accidentally, a certain amount has come out, perhaps the whole had better do so."
Mr. Parker made the encouraging noise, which among laymen supplies the place of the priest's insinuating, "Yes, my son."
"Sir Reuben Levy's visit on Monday night was to me," said Sir Julian.
"Yes," said Mr. Parker without expression.
"He found cause for certain grave suspicions concerning his health," said Sir Julian slowly, as though weighing how much he could, in honor, disclose to a stranger. "He came to me, in preference to his own medical man, as he was particularly anxious that the matter should be kept from his wife. As I told you, he knew me fairly well, and Lady Levy had consulted me about a nervous disorder in the summer."
Did he make an appointment with you?" asked Parker.
"I beg your pardon,"
said the other absently. "Did he make an appointment?"
"An appointment? Oh, no. He turned up suddenly in the evening after dinner when I wasn't expecting him. I took him up here and examined him, and he left me somewhere about 10 o'clock, I should think."
"May I ask what was the result of your examination?"
"Why do you want to know?"
"It might illuminate well, conjecture as to his subsequent conduct, said Parker cautiously. This story seemed to have little coherence with the rest of the business, and he wondered whether coincidence was alone responsible for Sir Reuben's disappearance on the same night that he visited the doctor.
"I see," said Sir Julian. "Yes, well, I will tell you in confidence that I saw grave grounds of suspicion, but as yet no absolute certainty of mischief."
"Thank you. Sir Reuben left you at 10 o'clock.
"Then or thereabouts. I did not at first mention the matter, as it was so very much Sir Reuben's wish to keep his visit to me secret, and there was no question of accident in the street or anything of that kind, since he reached home safely at midnight."
"Quite so," said Parker.
"It would have been, and is, a breach of confidence," said Sir Julian. "And I only tell you now because Sir Reuben was accidentally seen, and because I would rather tell you in private than have you ferreting round here and questioning my servants, Mr. Parker. You will excuse my frankness."
"Certainly," said Parker. "I hold no brief for the pleasantness of my profession, Sir Julian. I'm very much obliged to you for telling me this. I might have otherwise wasted valuable time following up a false trail."
"I'm sure I need not ask you, in your turn, to respect this confidence," said the doctor. "To publish the matter abroad could only harm Sir Reuben and pain his wife, besides placing me in no favorable light with my patients."
"I promise to keep the thing to myself," said Parker. "Except, of course," he added hastily, "that I must inform my colleague."
"You have a colleague in the case?"
"I have."
What sort of person is he?"
"He will be perfectly discreet, Sir Julian." Ooh, blooming flowers, nice.
"Is he a police officer?"
"You need not be afraid of your confidence getting into the records at Scotland Yard."
"I see that you know how to be discreet, Mr. Parker."
"We also have our professional etiquette, Sir Julian." On returning to Great Ormond Street, Mr. Parker found a wire awaiting him, which said, "Do not trouble to come. All well. Returning tomorrow. Whimsy." Oh, end of chapter. There we go. Okay, great time to have a little stretch. Good Lord, maybe get a little more coffee in my system. Good gracious. Ew. Oh, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Mr. Parker is Spider-Man. It might be. I'm not. I don't know if we've seen his first name. Is he Peter? Is he a Peter Parker? I'm not sure. Oh, we got a follow from a Psycho. Oh, I don't know if that's good or bad. Good morning, Psycho. Yeah, those blooming flower stickers there. Yeah, there's some nice April ones going in there. All right. Let's see. Just quickly checking a little update thing here, real fast, and see who sent me that text. Someone sent me some. But oh no, there was Discord. No, never mind. Bum. Where are we at? Okay. Good. You are good at the literatures. Yes. Skip Donahue, where that Hot Wheels punk? You gonna nip it? What? Where that Hot Wheels punk? What's a Hot Wheels punk? I don't know. I don't know where that is. All right, let's get some, there we go. We'll throw another battle royale down. Get one of these. Okay, we're going to get on with our next chapter in just a minute. That was a long chapter, though. It's 11:30 already. We just, yeah, the chapter lengths in this are very, some of them are super short, and some of them just, like, go on and on forever. That was, like, almost an hour and a half, that one. Good Lord. Don't know, you are pretty broken. You know, I think, in a lot of ways, we all are. We all are. There we go. Let's see. Am I? Oh no! Oh no! I didn't win this one. No. What's this? Looks like it's going to be Tillable Cat. I think Tillable Cat's going to be the winner here. Oh no! Wow! Jelly Buns came up with did the double hit for like double the amount of health. Wow, okay. Oh boy, I thought Tillable Cat was going to had it on a was going to do it for sure. Good Lord. Oh, and you're a are you a crab? Oh yeah, you are. Okay. It's some kind of weird little crab. That's the exact opposite of real life, but you'll take it. Yeah, no, it's going to be a good omen. That's exactly what that is. It's a good omen. It'll translate into life. Okay. Okay, one more sip of coffee, and then we get back into our book. We go, and we'll get another chapter, and we'll get another chapter done. Okay, so I mean, it's a good mystery so far. Good mystery so far. On returning to the flat just before lunchtime on the following morning, after a few confirmatory researches in Balham and the neighborhood of Victoria Station, Lord Peter was greeted at the door by Mr. Bunter, who had gone straight home from Waterloo, with a telephone message and a severe and nursemaid-like eye. Okay. So Lord Peter Wimsey, he's our main detective guy, who we haven't heard a peep from recently, and Mr. Bunter is his butler, manservant. Okay. Lord Peter was greeted at the door by Mr. Bunter, who had gone straight home from Waterloo, with a telephone message and a severe and nursemaid-like eye.
Lady Swaffham rang up, my lord, and said she hoped your lordship had not forgotten you were lunching with her.
I have forgotten, Bunter, and I mean to forget. I trust you told her I had succumbed to lethargic encephalitis suddenly, no flowers by request.
Lady Swaffham said, my lord, she was counting on you. She met the Duchess of Denver yesterday.
If my sister-in-law's there, I won't go, that's flat. Good morning, J.R. Henning. How are you doing? Good morning, Mr. Henning. There we go, yeah. Got these stickers are awesome and amazing. This is we'll get them all out there real fast. One second. What do we got? We got boom. Book Club. We got King Carrington and Waffle. Yeah. All of them are awesome. I love them. They're very, very nice. Very nice. That, by the way, in case anyone was wondering who made those, is that gentleman right there, Mr. J.R. Henning. Great artist. He's very cool. And he does stream. He does stream on Mixer here. So if you like, and he teaches art. It's not, I guess, it's not officially teaching, but yeah, he when he does his art stuff there, he does it like step by step, and people follow along with him. It's great. It's a great stream. Right. The Sparks counter, I'm not sure. All right, so we're just working our way through a jolly good murder with Lord Peter Wimsey. Yeah. Very good. We've got one more chapter to go. Then I'll have to like go get some work done, or at least in this in this environment, look for work. All right. "If my sister-in-law's there, I won't go, that's flat," said Lord Peter.
"I beg your pardon, my lord, the Dowager Duchess."
That's his mother. "What's she doing in town?"
"I imagine she came up for the inquest, my lord."
"Oh, yes. We missed that, Bunter."
"Yes, my lord. Her Grace is lunching with Lady Swaffham."
"Bunter, I can't, really. Say I'm in bed with a whooping cough, and ask my mother to come round after lunch."
"Very well, my lord. Mrs. Tommy Frayle will be at Lady Swaffham's, my lord, and Mr. Milligan."
"Mr. who?"
"Mr. John P. Milligan, my lord, and—"
"Good God, Bunter, why didn't you say so before? Have I time to get there before he does? All right, I'm off. With a taxi I can just—"
"Not in those trousers, my lord,"
said Mr. Bunter, blocking the way to the door with deferential firmness. "Oh, Bunter," pleaded his lordship, "do let me, just this once. You don't know how important it is."
"Not on any account, my lord. It would be as much as my place is worth."
"The trousers are all right, Bunter."
"Not for Lady Swaffham's, my lord. Besides, your lordship forgets the man that ran against you with a milk-can at Salisbury."
And Mr. Bunter laid an accusing finger on a slight stain of grease showing across the light cloth. "I wish to God I'd never let you grow into a privileged family retainer, Bunter," said Lord Peter, bitterly, dashing his walking-stick into the umbrella stand. "You've no conception of the mistakes my mother may be making." Mr. Bunter smiled grimly and led his victim away. When an immaculate Lord Peter was ushered, rather late for lunch, into Lady Swaffham's drawing-room, the Dowager Duchess of Denver was seated on a sofa, plunged in intimate conversation with Mr. John P. Milligan of Chicago. "I'm very pleased to meet you, Duchess," had been that financier's opening remark, "to thank you for your exceedingly kind invitation. I assure you it's a compliment I deeply appreciate." The Duchess beamed at him, while conducting a rapid rally of all her intellectual forces.
"Oh, do come and sit down and talk to me, Mr. Milligan," she said. "I do so love talking to you great businessmen. Let me see. Is it a railway king you are, or something about Puss in the Corner? At least, I don't mean that exactly, but that game one used to play with cards, all about wheat and oats. And there was a bull and a bear, too. Or was it a horse? No, a bear, because I remember one always had to try and get rid of it, and it used to get so dreadfully crumpled and torn, poor thing, always being handed about. One got to recognize it, and then one had to buy a new pack. So foolish it must seem to you, knowing the real thing, and dreadfully noisy, but really excellent for breaking the ice with rather stiff people who didn't know each other. I'm quite sorry it's gone out."
Mr. Milligan sat down. "Well, now," he said, "I guess it's as interesting for us businessmen as to meet British aristocrats as it is for Britishers to meet American railway kings, Duchess. And I guess I'll make as many mistakes talking your kind of talk as you would make if you were trying to run a corner in wheat in Chicago. Fancy now, I called that fine lad of yours Lord Whimsy the other day, and he thought I'd mistaken him for his brother. That made me feel rather green." This was an unhoped-for lead. The Duchess walked warily.
"Oh, dear boy," she said, "I'm so glad you met him, Mr. Milligan. Both my sons are a great comfort to me, you know, though, of course, Gerald is more conventional, just the right kind of person for the House of Lords, you know, and a splendid farmer. I can't see Peter down at Denver half so well, though he is always going to all the right things in town, and very amusing sometimes. Poor boy."
"I was very much gratified by Lord Peter's suggestion," pursued Mr. Milligan, "for which I understand you are responsible, and I'll surely be very pleased to come any day you like, though I think you're flattering me too much."
"Ah, well," said the Duchess, "I don't know if you're the best judge of that, Mr. Milligan. Not that I know anything about business myself," she added. "I'm rather old-fashioned these days, you know, and I can't pretend to do more than know a nice man when I see him. For the other things I rely on my son."
The accent of this speech was so flattering that Mr. Milligan purred almost audibly, and said, "Well, Duchess, I guess that's where a lady with a real, beautiful, old-fashioned soul has the advantage of these modern young blatherskites. There aren't many men who wouldn't be nice to her, and even then, if they aren't rock bottom, good Lord, what is that? Well, Duchess, I guess that's where a lady with a real beautiful old-fashioned soul has the advantage of these modern young blatherskites. There aren't many men who wouldn't be nice to her, and even then, if they aren't rock bottom, she can nice to her, and even then, if they aren't rock bottom, she can see through them. Good Lord."
"But that leaves me where I was," thought the Duchess. "I believe," she said aloud, "that I ought to be thanking you in the name of the vicar of Duke's Denver for a very munificent check which reached him yesterday for the Church Restoration Fund. He was so delighted and astonished, poor dear man."
"Oh, that's nothing," said Mr. Milligan. "We haven't any fine old crusted buildings like yours over on our side, so it's a privilege to be allowed to drop a little kerosene into the wormholes when we hear of one in the old country suffering from senile decay. So when your lad told me about Duke's Denver, I took the liberty to subscribe without waiting for the bazaar."
"I'm sure it was very kind of you," said the Duchess. "You are coming to the bazaar, then?" she continued, gazing into his face appealingly.
"Sure thing," said Mr. Milligan, with great promptness. "Lord Peter said you'd let me know for sure about the date, but we can always make time for a little bit of good work anyway. Of course, I'm hoping to be able to avail myself of your kind invitation to stop, but if I'm rushed, I'll manage anyhow to pop over and speak my piece and pop back again."
"I hope so very much," said the Duchess. "I must see what can be done about the date. Of course, I can't promise—"
"No, no," said Mr. Milligan heartily. "I know what these things are to fix up. And then there's not only me, there's all the real big men of European eminence your son mentioned to be consulted." The Duchess turned pale at the thought that any one of these illustrious persons might some time turn up in somebody's drawing-room, but by this time she had dug herself in comfortably and was even beginning to find her range.
"I can't say how grateful we are to you," she said. "It will be such a treat. Do tell me what you think of saying."
"Well," began Mr. Milligan. Suddenly everybody was standing up, and a penitent voice was heard to say,
Really, most awfully sorry, you know. Hope you'll forgive me. Lady Swaffham, what? Oh, dear lady, could I possibly forget an invitation from you? The fact is, I had to go and see a man down in Salisbury. Absolutely true, upon my word, and the fellow wouldn't let me get away. I'm simply grovelling before you, Lady Swaffham. Shall I go and eat my lunch in the corner?"
Lady Swaffham gracefully forgave the culprit.
"Your dear mother is here," she said.
"Oh, how do you do, mother?" said Lord Peter uneasily.
"How are you, dear?" replied the Duchess. "You really oughtn't to have turned up just yet. Mr. Milligan was just going to tell me what a thrilling speech he's preparing for the bazaar when you came and interrupted us."
Conversation at lunch turned, not unnaturally, on the Battersea inquest, the Duchess giving a vivid impersonation of Mrs. Thipps being interrogated by the coroner.
"Did you hear anything unusual in the night?" says the little man, leaning forward and screaming at her, and so crimson in the face, and his ears sticking out so, just like a cherubim in that poem of Tennyson's. Or is the cherub blue? Perhaps it's a seraphim, I mean. Anyway, you know what I mean, all eyes with little wings on its head. And dear old Mrs. Phipps saying, of course I have, any time these 80 years. And such a sensation in court till they found out she thought he'd said, do you sleep without a light? And everybody laughing, and then the coroner said quite loudly, damn the woman, and she heard that, I can't think why, and said, don't you get swearing, young man, sitting there in the presence of Providence, as you may say. I don't know what young people are coming to nowadays, and he's 60 if he's a day, you know, said the Duchess.
By a natural transition, Mrs. Tommy Frail referred to the man who was hanged for murdering 3 brides in a bath.
I always thought that was so ingenious, she said, gazing soulfully at Lord Peter. And do you know, as it happened, Tommy had just made me insure my life, and I got so frightened I gave up my morning bath and took to having it in the afternoon when he was in the house. I mean, when he was not in the house. Not at home, I mean.
Dear lady, said Lord Peter reproachfully, I have a distinct recollection that all those brides were thoroughly unattractive. But it was an uncommonly ingenious plan, the first time of asking, only he shouldn't have repeated himself.
One demands a little originality in these days, even from murderers, said Lady Swaffham. Like dramatists, you know. So much easier in Shakespeare's time, wasn't it? Always the same girl dressed up as a man, and even that borrowed from Boccaccio or Dante or somebody. I'm sure if I'd been a Shakespeare hero, the very minute I saw a slim-legged young page boy, I'd have said, odds bodikins, there's that girl again.
That's just what happened, as a matter of fact, said Lord Peter. You see, Lady Swaffham, if ever you want to commit a murder, the thing you've got to do is prevent people from associating their ideas. Most people don't associate anything. Their ideas just roll about like so many dry peas on a tray, making a lot of noise and going nowhere. But once you begin letting them string their peas into a necklace, it's going to be strong enough to hang you, what?
Dear me, said Mrs. Tommy Frail with a little scream. What a blessing it is none of my friends have any ideas at all.
You see, said Lord Peter, balancing a piece of duck on his fork and frowning, it's only in Sherlock Holmes and stories like that people think things out logically. Ordinarily, if someone tells you something out of the way, you just say, by Jove, or how sad, and leave it at that. And half the time you forget about it, unless something turns up afterwards to drive it home. For instance, Lady Swaffham, I told you when I came in that I'd been down to Salisbury, and that's true, only I don't suppose it impressed you much. And I don't suppose that it'd impress you much if you read in the paper tomorrow of a tragic discovery of a dead lawyer down in Salisbury. But if I went to Salisbury again in a week, and there was a Salisbury doctor found dead the day after, you might begin to think I was a bird of ill omen for Salisbury residents. And if I went there again the week after, and you heard next day that the see of Salisbury had fallen vacant suddenly, you might begin to wonder what took me to Salisbury, and why I'd never mentioned before that I had friends down there, don't you see? And you might think of going down to Salisbury yourself and asking all kinds of people if they'd happened to see a young man in plum-coloured socks hanging round the bishop's palace.
I dare say I should, said Lady Swaffham.
Quite. And if you found that the lawyer and the doctor had once upon a time been in business at Poggleton-on-the-Marsh when the bishop had been vicar there, you'd begin to remember you'd once heard of me paying a visit to Poggleton-on-the-Marsh a long time ago, and you'd begin to look up the parish registers there, and discover I'd been married under an assumed name by the vicar to the widow of a wealthy farmer who died suddenly of peritonitis, as certified by the doctor, after the lawyer had made a will leaving me all her money. And then you'd begin to think I might have a very good reasons for getting rid of such promising blackmailers as the lawyer, the doctor, and the bishop. Only, if I hadn't started an association in your mind by getting rid of 'em all in the same place, you'd never have thought of going to Poggleton-on-the-Marsh, and you wouldn't even have remembered I'd even been there.
Were you ever there, Lord Peter?
Inquired Mrs. Tommy anxiously. I don't think so, said Lord Peter. The name threads no beads in my mind. But it might, any day, you know.
But if you were investigating a crime, said Lady Swaffham, you'd have to begin by the usual things, I suppose, finding out what the person had been doing, and who'd been to call, and looking for a motive, wouldn't you?
Oh, yes, said Lord Peter, but most of us have such dozens of motives for murdering all sorts of inoffensive people. There's lots of people I'd like to murder. Wouldn't you?
Oh, heaps, said Lady Swaffham. There's that dreadful... Perhaps I'd better not say it, though, for fear you should remember it later on.
Well, I wouldn't if I were you, said Peter amiably. You never know. It'd be beastly awkward if the person died suddenly tomorrow. So, good morning, Spatial Knight. Yeah, it's been a good day so far. A good day so far. Making good progress in our book, too. Well, I wouldn't if I were you, said Peter amiably. You never know. It'd be beastly awkward if the person died suddenly tomorrow. The difficulty with this Battersea case, I guess, said Mr. Milligan, is that nobody seems to have any associations with the gentleman in the bath.
So hard on poor Inspector Sugg, said the Duchess. I quite felt for the man, having to stand up there and answer a lot of questions when he had nothing at all to say.
Lord Peter applied himself to the duck, having got a little behindhand. Presently he heard somebody ask the Duchess if she had seen Lady Levy.
She's in great distress, said the woman who had spoken, a Mrs. Freemantle, though she clings to the hope that he will turn up. I suppose you knew him, Mr. Milligan. Know him, I should say, for I hope he's still alive somewhere.
Mrs. Freemantle was the wife of an eminent railway director, and celebrated for her ignorance on the world of finance. Her faux pas in this connection enlivened the tea parties of city men's wives. "While I've dined with him," said Mr. Milligan good-naturedly, "I think he and I've done our best to ruin each other, Mrs. Freemantle. If this were the States," he added, "I'd be much inclined to suspect myself of having put Sir Reuben in a safe place. But we can't do business that way in your old country. No, ma'am." "It must be exciting work doing business in America," said Lord Peter. "It is," said Mr. Milligan. "I guess my brothers are having a good time there now. I'll be joining them again before long, as soon as I've fixed up a little bit of work for them on this side."
"Well, you mustn't go till after my bazaar," said the Duchess.
Lord Peter spent the afternoon in a vain hunt for Mr. Parker. He ran him down eventually, after dinner, in Great Ormond Street. Sir Parker's a Scotland Yard man. Interesting name there, Mr. Slapper. Unusual. Parker was sitting in an elderly but affectionate armchair, with his feet on the mantelpiece, relaxing his mind with a modern commentary on the Epistle to the Galatians. He received Lord Peter with quiet pleasure, though without rapturous enthusiasm, and mixed him a whisky and soda. Peter took up the book his friend had laid down and glanced over the pages. Peter again. "All these men work with a bias in their minds, one way or the other," he said. "They find out what they are looking for." "Oh, they do," agreed the detective. "But one learns to discount that almost automatically, you know. When I was at college, I was all on the other side, Conybeare and Robertson and Drews and those people, you know, till I found that they were all so busy looking for a burglar whom nobody had ever seen, that they couldn't recognize the footprints of the household, so to speak. Then I spent 2 years learning to be cautious." Said Lord Peter. "Theology must be a good exercise for the brain, then, for you're easily the most cautious devil I know. But I say, do go on reading. It's a shame for me to come and root you up in your off time like this." "It's all right, old man," said Parker. The two men sat silent for a little, and then Lord Peter said, "Do you like your job?" The detective considered the question, and replied, Yes, I do. I know it to be useful, and I'm fitted to it. I do it quite well, not with inspiration, perhaps, but sufficiently well to take a pride in it. It's full of variety, and it forces one to keep up to the mark and not get slack, and there's a future to it. Yes, I like it. Why?" "Oh, nothing," said Peter. "It's a hobby to me, you see. I took it up when the bottom of things was rather knocked out for me, because it was so damned exciting, and the worst of it is, I enjoy it, up to a point. If it was all on paper, I'd enjoy every bit of it. I love the beginning of a job, when one doesn't know anything of the people, and it's just exciting and amusing. But if it comes to really running down a live person and getting him hanged, or even quadded, poor devil, they don't seem as if there was any excuse for me butting in, since I don't have to make my living by it. And I feel as if I oughtn't ever to find it amusing. But I do. I gotta look up, well, what does that mean? Or even quadded by it. What do they mean by quadded? We'll get back to it in just a second. I'm not seeing anything, not seeing anything, obvious. Not seeing anything obvious, on the, search engine there for quadded. If I was to guess, I'd quite drawn and quartered, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking there, Skip. Yeah, like the old drawn and quartered thing, or maybe just crucified, like up on a T, because that divides up into that divides areas up into fours as well. But yeah, I did a quick search engine there. It didn't turn anything up. Right. I'll try and remember to look that up later. Okay, but if it comes to really running down a live person and getting him hanged, or even quadded, poor devil, there don't seem as if there was any excuse for me butting in, since I don't have to make my living by it, and I feel as if I oughtn't ever to find it amusing. But I do. Parker gave this speech his careful attention. "I see what you mean," he said. "This old Milligan, for instance," said Lord Peter. "On paper, nothing would be funnier than to catch old Milligan out, but he's rather a decent old bird to talk to. Mother likes him. He's taken a fancy to me. It's awfully entertaining going and plumping him with stuff about a bazaar for church expenses, but when he's so jolly pleased about it and that, I feel a worm. Suppose old Milligan has cut Levy's throat and plugged him into the Thames. It ain't my business." "It's as much yours as anybody's," said Parker. "It's no better to do it for money than to do it for nothing." "Yes, it is," said Peter, stubbornly. "Having to live is the only excuse there is for doing that kind of thing." "Well, but look here," said Parker. "If Milligan has cut poor old Levy's throat for no reason except to make himself richer, I don't see why he should buy himself off by giving £1,000 to Duke's Denver church roof, or why he should be forgiven just because he's childishly vain, or childishly snobbish." "That's a nasty one," said Lord Peter. Well, if you like, even because he has taken a fancy to you. Well, no, but... look here, Whimsy. Do you think he has murdered Levy? Well, he may have. But do you think he has? I don't want to think so. Because he's taken a fancy to you? Well, that biases me, of course. I dare say it's quite a legitimate bias. You don't think a callous murderer would be likely to take a fancy to you? Well, besides, I've taken rather a fancy to him. I dare say that's quite legitimate, too. You've observed him and made a subconscious deduction from your observations, and the result is you don't think he did it. Well, why not? You're entitled to take that into account. But perhaps I'm wrong, and he did do it. Then why let your vainglorious conceit in your own power of estimating character stand in the way of unmasking the singularly cold-blooded murder of an innocent and lovable man? I don't know, but I don't feel I'm playing the game somehow. Look here, Peter, said the other with some earnestness. Suppose you get this playing fields of Eton complex out of your system once and for all. There doesn't seem to be much doubt that something unpleasant has happened to Sir Reuben Levy. Call it murder to strengthen the argument. If Sir Reuben has been murdered, is it a game? And is it fair to treat it as a game? That's what I'm ashamed of, really, said Lord Peter. It is a game to me, to begin with, and I go on cheerfully, and then I suddenly see that somebody's going to be hurt, and I want to get out of it. Good morning, Dahlia. What's up? Uh-huh. Oh, just catching up the chat real fast. Let's see. Okay, so... I will look up Quadded later when I have time. Yeah, more time. Skip was told that crucifix is a clue to carpenter's knowledge. The crucifix is a plan for making a box. Is it? I hadn't heard that one. Okay, so Quad is jail. Quoted is jailed. But this is the thing, because he was implying that it was worse than being hung. Is what it sounded like, unless he thinks the idea of him being imprisoned is worse than being hung. I know. How's your week going, Dahlia? How are you doing? I know, I'm looking very scruffy here. Well, no, I mean, like jelly buns, no. Going to jail is definitely not on my bucket list of things to do before I die. But it sure would beat being hung. I'm pretty sure about that. Yeah. Yeah, we're having a good time. Having a good time. You started a project and knocked you out energy-wise. Yeah, you take on big projects there. Last year, was it? You were doing up your like all the indoor renovations, and it wasn't just like a single room either. You did a lot of work on your place. Good morning, Bat Games. Good morning. In prison, you live in bad conditions, whereas death, heaven or hell, awaits you quick and easy, maybe. Maybe. What, you're making your poor husband do all the work and that leaves you tired? All right. Hard work supervising the husband, I guess. All right. Oh yeah, I know. There's all kinds of terrible ways to die. All right. Oh, he comes home to a mess. All right, yeah. Well, I mean, it's once it's all done, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Japan's on your well. Japan's better than jail. I know that. I know that for a fact. I've been to Japan before. I haven't been there. I haven't been there in a long time. It's an amazing place. Amazing place. Actually, I think. When did they stop shipping people down to Australia? That was the thing. They would just send them on down there. They were running out of prison space to ship them off down to Australia. All right, okay. Let's get back to our book. Here we go. And that's what I'm ashamed of, really, said Lord Peter. It is a game to me, to begin with, and I go on cheerfully, and then I suddenly see that somebody's going to be hurt, and I want to get out of it. Yes, I know, said the detective, but that's because you're thinking about your attitude. You want to be consistent. You want to look pretty. You want to swagger debonairly through a comedy of puppets, or else to stalk magnificently through a tragedy of human sorrows and things. But that's childish. If you've any duty to society in the way of finding out the truth about murders, you must do it in any attitude that comes handy. You want to be elegant and detached? That's all right, if you can find the truth out that way, but it hasn't any value in itself, you know. You want to look dignified and consistent. What's that got to do with it? You want to hunt down a murderer for the sport of the thing and then shake hands with him and say, "Well played, hard luck, you shall have your revenge tomorrow." Well, you can't do it like that. Life's not a football match. You want to be a sportsman. You can't be a sportsman. You're a responsible person. I don't think you ought to read so much theology, said Lord Peter. It has a brutalizing influence. He got up and paced about the room, looking idly over the bookshelves. Then he sat down again, filled and lit his pipe, and said, "Well, I'd better tell you about the ferocious entitled Crimplesham." He detailed his visit to Salisbury. Once assured of his bona fides, Mr. Crimplesham had given him the fullest details of his visit to town. "And I've substantiated it all," groaned Lord Peter, "and unless he's corrupted half Balham, there's no doubt he spent the night there, and the afternoon was really spent with the bank people, and half the residents of Salisbury seem to have seen him off on Monday before lunch. And nobody but his own family or young Wicks seems to have anything to gain by his death. And even if young Wicks wanted to make away with him, it's rather far-fetched to go and murder an unknown man in Thip's Place in order to stick Crimplesham's eyeglasses on his nose." "Where was young Wicks on Monday?" asked Parker. "At a dance given by the precentor," said Lord Peter wildly. "David, his name's David, dancing before the Ark of the Lord in the face of the whole cathedral close." There was a pause. "Tell me about the inquest," said Whimsy. Parker obliged with a summary of the evidence. "Do you believe the body could have been concealed in the flat, after all?" he asked. "I know we looked, but I suppose we might have missed something." Oh, no, that's Parker ending that one there. Root beer is, root beer. You know, it's ginger beer. The ginger beer would be my favorite little soda beverage. That's good stuff. Tea is nectar of the gods. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Yo, Jelly Buns has been living off of root beer and meat sticks. That... You're like Slim Jims? Like that kind of thing? Good Lord. That's, man, I don't know. Oh, yeah, you might want to reconsider your diet there. I don't know about that. Something at Golden Cyan. What's up? Okay, let's get back to our book. We'll get back to our book in just a second. Here we go. All right. Very good. Tell me about the inquest, said Whimsy. Parker obligated with a summary of the evidence. Do you believe the body could have been concealed in the flat after all? He asked. I know we looked, but I suppose we might have missed something. We might, but Sugg looked as well. Sugg, You do Sugg an injustice, said Lord Peter. If there had been any signs of Thip's complicity in the crime, Sugg would have found them. Why? Why? Because he was looking for them. He's like your commentators on Galatians. He thinks that either Thipps or Gladys Horrocks or Gladys Horrocks' young man did it. Therefore, he found marks on the windowsill where Gladys Horrocks' young man might have come in or handed something to Gladys Horrocks. He didn't find any signs on the roof because he wasn't looking for them. But he went over the roof before me. Yes, but only in order to prove that there were no marks there. He reasons like this. Gladys Horrocks' young man is a glazier. It's like the window installer. Glaziers come on ladders. Glaziers have ready access to ladders. Therefore, Gladys Horrocks' young man had ready access to a ladder. Therefore, Gladys Horrocks' young man came on a ladder. Therefore, there will be marks on the windowsill and none on the roof. Therefore, he finds marks on the windowsill but none on the roof. He finds no marks on the ground, but he thinks he would have found them if the yard didn't happen to be paved with asphalt. Similarly, he thinks Mr. Thipps may have concealed the body in the box room or elsewhere. Therefore, you may be sure he searched the box room and all the other places for signs of occupation. If they had been there, he would have found them because he was looking for them. Therefore, if he didn't find them, it's because they weren't there. All right, said Parker. Stop talking. I believe you. He went on to detail the medical evidence. By the way, said Lord Peter, to skip across for a moment to the other case, has it occurred to you that perhaps Levy was going out to see Freckey on Monday night? He did, said Parker, rather unexpectedly, and proceeded to recount his interview with the nerve specialist. Humph, said Lord Peter. I say, Parker, these are funny cases, ain't they? Every line of inquiry seems to peter out. It's awfully exciting up to a point, you know, and then nothing comes of it. It's like rivers getting lost in the sand. Yes, said Parker, and there's another one I lost this morning. Well, what's that? Oh, I was pumping Levy's secretary about his business. I couldn't get much that seemed important, except further details about the Argentine and so on. Then I thought I'd just ask round in the city about those Peruvian oil shares, but Levy hadn't even heard of them so far as I could make out. I routed out the brokers and found a lot of mystery and concealment, as one always does, you know, when somebody's been rigging the market, and at last I found one name at the back of it. But it wasn't Levy's. No? Whose was it? Oddly enough, Freckey's. It seems mysterious. He bought a lot of shares last week in a secret kind of way, a few of them in his own name, and then quietly sold them out on Tuesday at a small profit, a few hundreds, not worth going to all that trouble about, you wouldn't think. Shouldn't have thought he ever went in for that kind of gamble. He doesn't, as a rule. That's the funny part. Well, you never know, said Lord Peter. People do these things just to prove to themselves or somebody else that they could make a fortune that way if they liked. I've done it myself in a small way. He knocked out his pipe and rose to go. I say, old man, he said suddenly, as Parker was letting him out, does it occur to you that Freckey's story doesn't fit in awfully well with what Anderson said about the old boy having been so jolly at dinner on Monday night? Would you be, if you thought you'd got anything of that sort? No, I shouldn't, said Parker. But, he added with his habitual caution, some men will jest in the dentist's waiting room. You, for one. Well, that's true, said Lord Peter, and went downstairs. That's the end of our chapter. RJ is a dead man. Wow, that's a spooky name. How is the UK doing? Don't know. Haven't been there in quite some time. Hey there, Orgon. How you doing? How you doing? Oh, my lord. There we are. Orgon's been catching up on sleep. I need to do that. I've been uncommonly tired. And I think it's because I'm staying up a little later than I should be. Yeah. Good morning, Pinch and Twist. Good morning. Yeah, I'm yeah. After I log off for the gaming in the evening, there, I've been trying to like catch up on news and all that, and I'm yeah, where I should just be going right to bed. Not getting enough sleep. There we go. Dahlia says, I am your kid's English class today. Nice. Okay, well, very good. It's up there, Dahlia kids. How you all doing? How you all doing today? Hope you're enjoying the story time. We got to, let's see. Okay, man. Root Beer and Slim Jims. Not good, not good. Pinch and Twist. Pinch and Twist has hooked us up with a follow. Well, that's very cool. Alrighty. We are winding down right now. Winding down. So let's we're not going to be able to get through another chapter. Because yeah, I've already been reading for over 2 hours. So yeah, but anyway, we're 61% into it. The book we're reading is Whose Body by Dorothy L. Parker, one of her very first novels. There, this is the first Lord Peter Wimsey novel. Yeah, we're doing good. Pinch and Twist. Hope your day is going well. It's Thursday. It's Thursday. You know what that means? It means it's almost the weekend. I'm a fan. Yeah, got that weekend rolling right on up. Okay, so for those who may be new to the stream here, maybe don't know what we do. First of all, hello. How you all doing? So here's the plan. Here's what we do. Normally I'm not this scruffy either, but yeah, the world is a strange place right now. All right. Yeah, Monday through Thursday, I read books here on Mixer. I start at about 10 a.m. Pacific, or 1 p.m. Eastern, and I read for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something like that, Monday through Thursday. And we work our way through novels. And then on Sundays, we have a different show at a different time, too. On Sundays, we have Short Story Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific, where once again I read for this one's a bit longer, 2.5 hours, sometimes 3. On Sundays, short stories, poems. If you are a creative writer, if you have written a piece of something that you would like to share with the stream, I'm more than willing to read that. We do creative writing exercises from time to time. I've just recorded. I have in the can all of the pieces from the Edgar Allan Poe experiment. I've studio recorded all of them now. I still need to sit down and edit them, which I will be working on that this weekend actually. Yeah. Anyway, so book club in the morning, and then I go off and do some work. Well, hunt for auditions and the like, and then I come back later in the evening, about 7 p.m. Pacific, for some gaming. And tonight, I'm going to be trying out Elder Scrolls Online. I'm gonna give that one a whirl. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I may not know it, but they like watching when they can. Okay, well, this is very cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right. That's what we do here on this stream. Yeah, very nice. Let's see. Let's see if the best places to reach me. Well, we do have a Discord. We have a Discord, and I am up on Twitter. Hang on, https://twitter.com/Carrington TV, and there's my Twitter account. I don't really use Facebook that much, but yeah, you know, if you ever need to find, I post stuff frequently on Twitter, probably against my better judgment, but I do. Yeah, we just have a good time there. But we're drawing to a close. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to find a short story to end the night with. The short story. Well, what kind of thing do we want? Do we want something weird or let's see. No. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's exclamation extension. Oh, what's it? That one right there. Yeah, if you do that, it'll whisper you the actual link. Yeah. let's see. Do I have any sci-fi sci-fi short stories? Well, the sci-fi. Yeah, I don't know if these are the Corpse on the Great. Oh, that was in the sci-fi. What is? How long is this one? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2. It's going to be too long. I think the sci-fi stuff is going to be too long. Hey, it sounds like, what is that? Shadowtronics? Hello. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4. Yeah, my sci-fi stuff is not that organized. Sci-fi short. Yeah, and they're long is what it is. Yeah, I have a bunch of astounding stories of super science magazines, but those are all going to be hour-plus short stories. You're on Twitch, but the restream chat must be maybe. What are you doing watching on Twitch? Good gracious! All right. Okay, let's grab what is in here. Okay, we'll just do a Miss Cubbage and the Dragon of Romance. That sounds interesting. Some Asimov. I can't do Asimov. Well, actually, yeah, most of his stuff is not in the public domain. I'm sure there is some stuff in the magazines. Actually, there will be. There will be some stuff in the magazines. But I have not... I have not got that organized yet. All right. Ah! She is. Atomic power. The Dahlia's dropping bombs. All right, let's. Where was my? 1 second. What is the title of this one here? Miss Cubbage. One second. There we go. Let's try this one. Okay, the title's really big. Okay, too big. Okay, here we go. Miss Cubbage. Miss Cubbage and the Dragons of Romance. Let's try it out. Let's see what's going on. Oh, I lost my chat window. Yeah. LibriVox has a few. Interesting. I'll have to look up what those are there. Yeah, because the stuff on LibriVox is generally in the public domain. Although sometimes they get a little squirrely about it there, where it might be in countries with like some countries have different durations and the like. I could read a short one. I'm pretty sure the Foundation trilogy is not in the public domain. I'm pretty sure. I should look up what there is available. Oh, Black Dahlia is watching on YouTube right now. Okay, all right. Interesting. Yeah, I generally don't go over to like YouTube or Twitch, but you know, like I said, for the next couple of weeks I am, just in case people need some good story time or the like. Interesting. But yeah, I know I've just never really had any success on those on those platforms. But here we go. Let's do it. Let's get on with it. Miss Cubbage, and this is okay. So we'll continue with our detective story on Monday. The Lord Peter Wimsey. We'll continue with that on Monday. We're 61% of the way into that. And we're ending with here's a short story, just a weird one by Lord Dunsany, just a weird one. You're watching, yeah, on YouTube, not Mixer. Nice, yeah. This is the light in an otherwise mundane day. All right, okay. Well, let's see how the story goes. This is our last story of the day. Here we go. Let's do it. Miss Cubbage and the Dragon of Romance. This tale is told in the balconies of Belgrave Square, and among the towers of Pont Street. Men sing it at evening in the Brompton Road. Little upon her 18th birthday thought Miss Cubbage, of number 12A, Prince of Wales Square, that before another year had gone its way, she would lose the sight of that unshapely oblong that was so long her home. And had you told her further that within that year all trace of that so-called square, and of the day when her father was elected by a thumping majority to share in the guidance of the destinies of the empire, should utterly fade from her memory, she would merely have said in that affected voice of hers, "Go to." There was nothing about it in the daily press. The policy of her father's party had no provision for it. There was no hint of it in conversation at evening parties to which Miss Cubbage went. There was nothing to warn her at all that a loathsome dragon with golden scales that rattled as he went should have come up clean out of the prime of romance and gone by night, so far as we know, through Hammersmith, and come to Ardell Mansions, and then had turned to his left, which of course brought him to Miss Cubbage's father's house. There sat Miss Cubbage at evening on her balcony, quite alone, waiting for her father to be made a baronet. She was wearing walking boots and a hat and a low-necked evening dress, for a painter was but just now painting her portrait, and neither she nor the painter saw anything odd in the strange combination. She did not notice the roar of the dragon's golden scales, nor distinguish above the manifold lights of London the small red glare of his eyes. He suddenly lifted his head, a blaze of gold, over the balcony. He did not appear a yellow dragon then, for his glistening scales reflected the beauty that London puts upon her only at evening and night. She screamed, but to no knight, nor knew what knight to call on, nor guessed where were the dragon's overthrowers of far romantic days, nor what mightier game they chased, or what wars they waged. Perchance they were busy even then arming for Armageddon. Nice. You like those stickers? Yeah, those new stickers are amazing. Yeah, I love them. I love them. Black Dahlia is going to town. I like that. Out of the balcony of her father's house in Prince of Wales Square, the painted dark green balcony that grew blacker every year, the dragon lifted Miss Cubbage and spread his rattling wings, and London fell away like an old fashion. And England fell away, and the smoke of its factories, and the round material world that goes humming round the sun, vexed and pursued by time, until there appeared the eternal and ancient lands of romance lying low by mystical seas. You had not pictured Miss Cubbage stroking the golden head of one of the dragons of song with one hand idly, while the other she sometimes played with pearls brought up from lonely places of the sea. They filled huge Haliotis shells with pearls, and laid them there beside her. They brought her emeralds, which she set to flash among the tresses of her long black hair. They brought her threaded sapphires for her cloak. All this the princes of fable did, and the elves and the gnomes of myth. And partly she still lived, and partly she was one with long ago, and with those sacred tales that nurses tell when all their children are good, and evening has come, and the fire is burning well, and the soft pat-pat of the snowflakes on the pane is like the furtive tread of fearful things in old, enchanted woods. If at first she missed those dainty novelties among which she was reared, the old sufficient song of the mystical sea singing of fairy lore, at first soothed and at last consoled her. Even she forgot those advertisements of pills that are so dear to England. Even she forgot political cant, and the things that one discusses, and the things that one does not, and had perforce to content herself with seeing sailing by huge golden-laden galleons with treasure for Madrid, and the merry skull and crossbones of the pirateers, and the tiny Nautilus setting out to sea, and ships of heroes trafficking in romance, or of princes seeking for enchanted isles. No Cthulhu here. It was not by chains that the dragon kept her there, but by one of the spells of old. To one to whom the facilities of the daily press had for so long been accorded spells would have palled, you would have said, and galleons after a time, and all things out of date after a time. But whether the centuries passed her, or whether the years, or whether no time at all, she did not know. If anything indicated the passing of time, it was the rhythm of elfin horns blowing upon the heights. If the centuries went by her, the spell that bound her gave her also perennial youth, and kept alight for ever the lantern by her side, and saved from decay the marble palace facing the mystical sea. And if no time went by her there at all, her single moment on those marvelous coasts was turned as it were to a crystal reflecting 1,000 scenes. If it was all a dream, it was a dream that knew no morning and no fading away. The tide roamed on, and whispered of mastery and of myth, while near that captive lady, asleep in his marble tank, the golden dragon dreamed, and a little way out from the coast all that the dragon dreamed showed faintly in the mist that lay over the sea. He never dreamed of any rescuing night. So long as he dreamed, it was twilight. But when he came up nimbly out of his tank, night fell, and starlight glistened on the dripping golden scales. There he and his captive either defeated time or never encountered him at all, while in the world we know raged Roncesvalles. What was that? Roncesvalles. There he and his captive either defeated time or never encountered him at all, while in the world we know raged Roncesvalles, or battles yet to be. I know not to what part of the shore of romance he bore her. Perhaps she became one of those princesses of whom fable loves to tell, but let it suffice that there she lived by the sea, and kings ruled, and demons ruled, and kings came again, and many cities returned to their native dust. And still she abided there, and still her marble palace passed not away, nor the power that there was in the dragon's spell. And only once did there ever come to her a message from the world that of old she knew. It came in a pearly ship across the mystical sea. It was from an old school friend that she had had in Putney, merely a note, no more, in a little neat round hand. It said, "It is not proper for you to be there alone." Well, that had a very abrupt ending. Very abrupt. Okay, so I don't know, Mr. Broadtoad is back. Ah, nice. Alrighty, let us, taking a little look down here. Let's see. Is let's see, is oh, he's not there. Okay, so that was a very yeah, that was a very abrupt ending to that. Was not anticipating it stopping just like that. Yet here we are. Here we are. Oh, you know, my little overlays are not working. Did I put my? I'm sure I put that. Man, where is it in the pixel chat? The emote overlay. Let's refresh that. There you go. Now it's working. I have to refresh that so often. It's weird the way that goes, right? Well, anyway, so okay. Sometimes Lord Dunsany surprises you like that. All right, very cool. That was a lot of sparks going down there. We had some pizzas, and we had lots of mixer hearts, and we had tons of book club stickers, and wow, throwing them all down. Very nice. Okay, that does bring us to the end of our stream, though. It does. You like the book club hype sticker? Oh, it's really good. Yeah, Jerry Henning has done an outstanding job on all of these. Yep, I need one more to make a nice set of four Jerry Henning stickers. I need some clever ideas though to come up with it. It is. Sometimes we waffle a bit. But this does bring us to the end of the stream. So it's 12:30 here in the afternoon, at least where I am. I'm going to be back in 6.5 hours for gaming tonight. Starting off by trying Elder Scrolls Online. I'll be, I guess, doing the seeing how that works. I'm trying to find like a nice MMO to play on the console. It's the console one there. Right now, I think it's going to be Neverwinter. But yeah, I'm trying out Elder Scrolls Online. It is rated M for mature though, which is why I'm probably not going to be picking it for the one. And I also need to try out Black Desert Online. That's supposed to be pretty good as well. Check out Bless. Yeah, I've seen a lot of streamers have been pimping that one. Yeah, it kind of looked like is better than Neverwinter. Well, yeah, Neverwinter has been around a while. Yeah, so it's what I think 8 years old. I think something like that. Yeah, Bless Unleashed. I've seen a lot of streamers doing sponsored streams of Bless Unleashed. They're really trying hard to get into the market. Yeah. I watched some of the gameplay. But unless I was only, I didn't watch a lot of it. But it seemed to me that it reminded me a lot of Monster Hunter, really. But if there's more to it than that, it could be worth a look. It could be worth a look. Skip was you were not you were not keen on it. Wasn't? Is that supposed to be wasn't? Black Dahlia's you've played both and Neverwinter's not as good. Your bestie Shadow Serpent is a content creator in Bless Unleashed Leashed. I don't know what Bless Unleashed Leashed is. Skyrim and Morrowind. You've been playing those ones, yeah. Yeah, the but hopefully it'll be an MMO, which is like like fairly, I guess, slower paced. I guess I'm not a big fan of the like action RPGs, which it seems that the new Final Fantasies have kind of like turned into that kind of thing. Oh, just Bless Unleashed, all right. Black Desert's good, but very grindy. All right. Well, yeah, I'll be trying that out this weekend sometime. But yeah, tonight is Ark. No, I'm not doing Ark. No, I know some people go crazy for that game. But yeah, it's too much. There's too much work. It's too much work in it. All your inventory management and like raising things up and Final Fantasy VII. And I'm going to wait till the whole game comes out. Once the entire game is out, then we can do that. Oh, Dithera. What's up, Dithera? We're just ending our stream. You're catching us right as we're leaving. No! Why? Why? Yes. Yeah, this is the end of book club. For those, yeah, we start at we started 2.5 hours ago. So yeah, I'll be back later tonight. Your Paladins is done installing. Nice. Okay, yeah, we'll get some more of that in there. We can squeeze a bunch of people into that. That's probably the best part about that game, like being able to get a lot of people in there all at once. But yeah, there we go. So I'm going to be back later tonight. Let's see. Oh, level 5 was with us earlier this morning again. Level 5 went crazy last night. Absolutely crazy. Hey, that might be over the weekend, Shadow. Tonight I'm loading up the Elder Scrolls Online to try out that MMO. Yeah, no, I tried getting you yesterday. It was like, yeah, all right. We will get it done. We will get it done. Alrighty. But in the meantime, that's it. Yeah, I know. Sleep happens. You need that sleep. But here we go. I am out of here. I'm going to see. There's not a lot of people streaming right now. Not a lot of people streaming. Let's see. I'm being beat by Deadmau5. All right. Everyone's doing. Who's doing art stuff? That German music dude. He's okay. Actually, oh, here we go. With my filter. Here we go. There we go. Oh, unbelievable. Oh, we do have. There's some fan. There's actually literally some fan. Okay. I was looking for someone who's. What is this? That's more digital stuff here. What's this one? Oh, no. Okay, I'm sure she's nice, but I don't understand a word of what she's saying. All right. I know. Who's this dude?
I'm gonna turn double side on.
Yeah, okay. I have no idea who this guy is, but he's family friendly and he's in creative. That works for me. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I do not host 18 plus art streams. I think it's just the most ridiculous thing ever. I don't know why people do that. Here we go. Let us. Yeah, so I'll be back 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be doing some Elder Scrolls Online tonight. It's going to be trying that one out. In the meantime, here is... oh, we got to roll some credits. Yeah, we do. Got to roll some credits, yeah. Oh, Chris Alberti's here. What's going on, man?
So this wheel here, let's go.
Here we go. Okay, let's see. We can...
Standard.
Take a little look at what's how the day went, and then we're going to pass it on over to Mr. Pixel something or other. Here we go, and well, you are the best. Of course, you're the best. Here we go. All these people who are in the chatters. Dahlia's 91 messages. I suspect a lot of that was stickers. That's fine. I'll take all them stickers. Skip knows how to chat it up too. Brote Toad popping in and out. Jelly Buns. Oregon, Tellable Cat, Mr. Slapper, more pizza, Chris Alberti. Yeah, oh, and it's always good to see Dahlia Rose. Dahlia Rose. It's always nice to have Dahlia Rose in here. As well as Shadowtronics, of course. Look at all them sparks that just came in. They came in flying. They came in with them. There we go. Yeah, people like that book club sticker. Look at that. That's the #1 sticker today, by far. And with a mix of love and a lot of pizza. I'm hungry now. I'm hungry. Not so many emojis used today. That's kind of interesting. Oh, we got a few new follows. Dear Dagny, Psycho, Golden Cyan, Pinch and Twist, Dithera, nice, and some hosts. I'm a fan. Yeah. You're gonna hit the emotes later tonight, big time. All right.
For sure. I use that a lot.
We can do that. And a lot of hosts. Look at them. There are a lot of hosts. Those help me out a lot. They really do. But there we go. I need to go have some lunch, and then I need to get some work done, and then I'll be back later tonight. we will see you next time. Have a great night, and I'm going to throw a host over to this other art place. Right, catch you.